Good morning. Good morning. It's Judge Dawson, and you are about to get another motivation on the move. Now, this is just an introduction to the program that I'm going to list a little bit later for my Finish First Cycle Breakers program, where we talk about ways to improve your life and move your life to the next level. And remember, it doesn't matter if you are perfect. None of us are, but some of you may think you are. It doesn't matter if everything is going right. There's always something we can improve on. And that's the premise of being a cycle breaker. Breaking cycles in your life, a lot of times negative and sometimes just moving to the next level. So today we are going to talk about being unevenly yoked. Now, if you are a Bible reader, a Bible believer, you've heard that term throughout churches, maybe all your life, but it goes a little deeper than just the Bible. There are principles about being unevenly yoked with people that can lead you to either destruction, whereas sometimes if the yoke is even, it can lead you to your success. So we are going to talk about the yoke and being unevenly yoked with people and what you need to do to rid your life of those people. So thank you for joining me. Sit back and let's go. All right, Cycle Breakers, we are here for another amazing session. And why are they amazing? Because simply, I'm trying to just give you as many tools as I can as a judge so that you can have your best life. I've been doing this for a lot of years as a defense attorney, and then as a judge, and even before that, just as a human being experiencing life. And not only just experiencing life, but trying to figure out how to navigate these mistakes that we often make. So I have a lot of tools and information that I can share with you. And that is my goal. That is why you're here. And I also respect your time. So I'm not going to hold you a long time talking about things that, you may or may not apply. I'm going to hit you with the facts and the tools right up close, right up personal, so that you can use them to be your best self. I want to talk about being yoked with somebody. Yoked. So technically, as you see from that definition, being yoked was a term that was used to talk about animals and how animals traveled. And in fact, recently I had the opportunity to go to Hale Farms. Now, I'm not sure if you are familiar with Hale Farms, if you are in Ohio, but I probably went there as a youth. But I had a chance to go again with my son. And now as an adult, I went with a whole different mindset. There's a term that I use when I'm talking to people. If you ask me how my day is going, I'll say it's wonderful, right? And I do that intentionally. I intentionally like to have my days full of wonder. How do you do that? You do it by looking at everything with a fresh eye, with a sense of wonder and amazement, and just gratitude for what you're viewing and what you're experiencing. Now, we'll talk about that later. I'll give you a whole workshop on wonderful. But I say it now to use it as example that when I went to Hale Farms, I went there ready for wonder. So I go in, I have the open mindset, and the first thing that we are presented with is the cabin that Mr. Hale lived in when he made his way to Cleveland. Now, you'll see the facts and some of the details that I'll put with this video. But generally, what I remember is that Hale decided to move from Connecticut or somewhere far to northeastern Ohio. I think it was 62 miles and it took like 14 days or something like that. You'll get the facts. But he did it by carriage. So that means, those little wooden wheels and the drapery around you to keep you warm and to keep your things safe. He went by carriage. And it wasn't a horse in carriage. It was an oxen in carriage. So oxes, they are the ones that traveled with him or carried him to his new home. According to the historical facts, in 1810, Jonathan Hale, a farmer from Connecticut, arrived in the Western Reserve. As a gesture of good faith, he guaranteed the debts of a friend in Connecticut. Unfortunately for Hale, he was not able to pay back his debts, and it forced him to pay. And what he did was he sold his house, his farm in Connecticut, and almost everything else that he had. Luckily, he had about $1,200, and he used that to purchase 500 acres of land in Western Reserve. Once he got here to Ohio, he realized there was somebody living on his property, but the person who had lived there had built a cabin and cleared the land. So what he did was give away his horse, wagon, and oxen in exchange for the home. Now, there's some additional facts that I learned, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. You know, an oxen is not really an animal. It's more so a job title. So it's that big bull that instead of being aggressive and fighting, it's been neutered. So it's a little less aggressive, but they use it to work. So they call it oxen. So oxen is a job title. All right, maybe that's too much information for you, but let me get back to the point. So the point is they traveled by oxen. And if you know anything about oxen, they are carried by or guided by a yoke. A yoke goes on their neck and it's attached to the neck of the oxen next to them. So whenever you've heard the term yoke, it's really talking about what they use on oxen. And in order for the oxen to move in a way that was productive, they had to be evenly yoked. Because if one was too far forward, it wouldn't work. And one was too far back, it wouldn't work, or up or down. So they had to be evenly yoked so that they can do the job of the oxen, which was to carry their cargo from one place to another. And then there's another perspective, a biblical perspective of being evenly yoked, where the Apostle Paul basically spoke about how you should choose your relationships. And I'll put that quote here also so you can take a look at it. So in that regard, they're talking about spiritual connections and what you should look for when you're dealing with a person. And I think for our purposes, we can put them both together and use it for something that can help us continue to be cycle breakers as well as to live our best lives. So that's the history of evenly yoked, and that's where we're going to begin our discussion. Let me start with your friendships. We have many friends because if you live long enough, you're going to meet people, you're going to be attracted to people, attached to people. But the first thing to realize is that some friendships are meant to last for a short period of time, maybe to accomplish a specific goal, maybe to fill a void for a short period of time. But that doesn't mean you have to let those friendships last forever, especially if they're not good for you, and especially if they don't serve you. And how will you know if they're not good for you or if they don't serve you? Well, you have to look to the principle of being evenly yoked. And again, if you're looking at it from a spiritual connection or a biblical connection, that's fine. Or just based on the definition of what being yoked together means and what it requires. So let me give you a few examples. Let me just keep it 100%. If your man smokes weed and you don't smoke weed, how is that evenly yoked? I mean, think about it. Smoking weed, when I say smoking weed, I'm not talking about I tried it or I do it every now and then. It's something that you do. Some people smoke weed. That means they do it on a regular basis. Some people work out. That means they do it on a regular basis. So if you're dealing with somebody who on a regular basis decides to intoxicate their mind by some type of substance, but you don't, how can you be evenly yoked with that person? But instead, because we are humans and we have a connection with people and we have a need to be with people, we accept that. So what happens is you're at the house, they're at the house, they're getting high, you're not getting high. Then they're speaking to you. They're high when they're talking to you, but you act as if it's a regular conversation. You know what I mean? You deal with them as if you're on the same page and the same level, when technically it's impossible, because that person just took a substance, a mind-altering substance, before speaking with you. But see, we allow that to be. But if you were being your best self, and if you were looking out for your best self or speaking to your child or somebody you care about, you'd point out that those two things don't match. Let me give you another example. If your person that you're dealing with is an alcoholic, but you're not, that's a problem. Because every time that person enters that alcoholic state, the two of you are not on the same page. But yet you're trying to make that relationship work. You're trying to keep that friendship together. Those are situations where you have to look at it and say, we are not evenly yoked. We're not even moving in the same direction. But instead, because it's 2020 and beyond, we let those things go. Oh, it's no big deal. Everybody smokes weed. You know, they do it outside. They don't do it in the house. But it's a mind-altering drug. If that's not what you're into, then how can you be with that person? Now, if you get high too, then all bets are off. Everybody gets high. And we could talk about that from another perspective, from a legal perspective, and whether or not you'll find yourself in a legal matrix. We could talk about it from a success perspective, and what types of levels of success can you achieve in that mindset or that mind state. And I know there are a lot of people who say, you know what, when I'm high, I do my best work and I'm more creative, and that may be true. But that's not true for the majority of people who use those drugs. So using drugs is important. If you don't want a man, or if you don't use drugs, why would you date a man that uses drugs? If you don't drink like an alcoholic, why would you date a woman who's always at the club drinking and coming home drunk? And you have to deal with that. So you have to look for someone that you're evenly yoked with. Why? Because what are the consequences of those situations? Well, you're not on the same page. So ultimately, you two are not vibing on every cylinder. There will be a void in a relationship because that person will look for somebody that they can get high with or drink with. And if it's not you, it may be somebody else. Or the two of you can't communicate effectively on what the future will hold for your relationship because this barrier of the substance is always there. Whether or not you're going to accept that or come along onto the other side, I mean, it's just a barrier that you don't need. And it goes back to being unevenly yoked. Now, don't get me wrong. I know people personally who have lived in that existence for a long time, and they're happy. But that's a roll of the dice. It's not normal, because normally what you want to do is be with somebody who you're evenly yoked with. Look, I know it's easier said than done. You're a human being, and we are just naturally attracted to relationships. In fact, we have a need to be in relationships. But I implore you to really take time and think about who you are connecting with. That's in your friendships. That's in your business partnerships. That's in your relationships. That's even with the people that you get in a car with. I just had a case today, another case, because they happen all the time, where somebody was a passenger in a vehicle. The driver led him on a high-speed chase. This time the guy said he was asleep through the whole chase. I don't believe that. But the bottom line is that when you are not intentional about the people that you surround yourself with, you will end up in a situation where your freedom could be in jeopardy. Not to mention all those other things, the hurt, the pain, the relationship, the finances, going broke, breaking up. All these things will be in jeopardy when you don't first start with the person that you're at least evenly yoked with, moving in the same direction. Let's talk about your finances. How can you be in a relationship with someone when you two don't have the same financial goals or the same respect or understanding about finances? Somebody's going to be spending all the time. Somebody's going to want to go out every weekend, want to order food out, not want to save. So what that's doing is setting you up in a position where you are also going to be in a place where there is a disconnect because you're not in union with somebody. And you know what? Let me, before we even go further, tell you why this is so important. One of the reasons you are where you are right now is based on the decisions that you've made in the past. Let me say that again. The reason you are where you are right now is based on what you've done or the decisions that you've made in the past. So you have to figure out, are you moving in a direction where your goals are? And the people around you, do they support that? And are they helping that? Or are they hindering it? Or are they a step back every time you hook up with them? See, that's why this whole conversation about being evenly yoked is so important. It's because in order to achieve, in order to win, you guys got to be on the same page. You know what I mean? The Lakers didn't win the championship by playing different games. They had a game plan. They knew what their roles were, and they won. But when you're not evenly yoked with somebody, you have to trade them off your team. They can be a good player, maybe good for another team. He's a good man, maybe better for another woman that can deal with all the craziness. She's a good woman, but maybe not for you because she's a little too feisty and you don't like to communicate like that. So you have to determine what your goal is, what is it that you want to win, and who do you need on your team to get to that next level. You know what? Let me get even more down to earth and right in your face about it. You need to be worried about, concerned about, and intentional about even the people you communicate with. Even the people whose the text messages that you return, the calls that you return, the people who you reply in emails to. All of these people are getting a piece of you, a piece of your life, and they may not deserve it. Why? Because you know they're coming with the chaos. You know they're coming with the mess, with the rumors. And as soon as you give them that energy, you are opening yourself up to all of that chaos in your existence. That's another example of being evenly yoked. You don't even want to deal with people on a personal level if they are not on your personal level. It's one thing to work with people. It's one thing to see somebody at the store and speak to them. You can even go to a same event and be around somebody. But as far as being personal and getting down to the nitty gritty about what you want to achieve and what's important to you, if you are not evenly yoked with that person, even as a friend or associate, they should not be in your inner circle and they should not be privy to your beautiful, wonderful time, right? Because we've talked about time. It's your energy. It's your resource. It's all you have. When your time is up, your time is up. So don't waste your time with people who are not evenly yoked, people who are not on the same page as you. And definitely don't be in relationship with them. And definitely don't get in intimate relationships with them, because you will find that it is a waste of time. After everything is said and done and you've had all the fun, if you cannot move forward with that person, it is not worth it. So you have to value yourself more than you value that relationship. Value yourself more than you value that other person, hurting their feelings. And don't give me the excuses that you are just a nice person and you're so inviting. No, that indicates to me that you are not able to set the appropriate boundaries for your life so that you can achieve your goals and be the best that you can be. It's an excuse. Don't let that be your excuse. Only deal with people who you are evenly yoked with when you're dealing with your personal affairs. You know what? With all that being said, it's still important for you to be kind to yourself, right? Don't be violent to yourself. Don't blame yourself for the connections that you've made that didn't work out right. Don't blame yourself for trusting people who do not earn that trust or deserve that trust. Don't be mad at yourself for the situations that caused you to have your heart broken, or even to lose money, or even to end up in jail. Because as long as you're living, you have the opportunity to recover from those mistakes. But the key is about being a cycle breaker. It's about recognizing, okay, I've made a mistake. I fell into a cycle, and I need to break out of that cycle. I've been choosing the wrong people. Matter of fact, I've been dating the same guy over and over and over again. He just has a different name. Same qualities, same coolness or lack of coolness, same hustling mentality or lack of hustling mentality. I've been doing it over and over again. Or I have the same friends. None of them graduated from high school. None of them care about getting a job. All they want to do is play PlayStation and things like that. Whatever it is, you have to acknowledge it, but don't beat yourself up about it. Just make that acknowledgement. I'm more important than that relationship. In fact, I'm going to set some boundaries, some guardrails so that I don't fall into those relationships again. And I'm going to make sure that whomever I spend my time with, whoever I give my energy to, I am going to be evenly yoked with that person. I am going to be on the same page with that person in regard to our finances, in regard to our spiritual acknowledgement or spiritual walk, in regard to how we treat each other. How about how we raise children? Because God forbid, if you already have children and you're dating somebody and you're bringing them into your life, they need to have an understanding about how you're going to raise your child. Or you decide to have a child with somebody, they need to have an understanding. You too need to have an understanding on how you're going to do that together. See, it's bigger than you because it's about your legacy and it's about your happiness and it's about the energy that you put off into the world. So we need you. We need you to be positive. We need you to be happy. We need you to be productive so that this world can be a better place. And it starts with the responsibility of making sure we're taking care of ourselves properly, that we are evenly yoked with the people that we are around, that we are evenly yoked with the people we invest in, invest with, evenly yoked with the people that we get in the car with to drive, because you don't know what's going to happen when they get behind the wheel of that car. Evenly yoked with the people that you get into an intimate relationship or friendship with. If that person doesn't care about you, and if you don't know every detail of the plans that they have for you and the plans you have together, then there may be a missing yoke there, and you need to address it. So don't play Russian roulette with your life, right? Don't gamble on your success. Instead, invest strategically so that you always put yourself in the position to win. And you'll continue to be cycle breakers. Let's go.